For most of human history, the ocean was silence. Not just empty space, but a wall. A vast, shifting barrier that swallowed ships, erased messages, and turned weeks into months, and months into lifetimes. If someone sailed beyond the horizon, their voice vanished with them. No updates, no confirmations, no certainty they were even alive. And yet somehow, humanity refused to accept that silence. This is the story of how humans learned to speak across oceans, and how doing so quietly rewired the world. Long before wires, before radio waves, before satellites floating above the earth, communication was bound by physical presence. To communicate meant to be there, or to send something that could survive the journey. Early coastal civilizations, Phoenicians, Polynesians, Greeks, and Romans understood the ocean primarily as a route for movement, not communication. Messages traveled only as fast as ships could carry them. A letter sent from Rome to Alexandria might take weeks. From Europe to Asia, months. From one empire to another, sometimes never. This delay shaped everything. Wars were fought based on outdated information. Kings ruled blindly over distant colonies. Families waited years for word from loved ones who had sailed beyond the edge of the known world. The ocean did not just separate land, it stretched time itself. Before technology, communication across water relied on ingenuity and improvisation. Along coastlines, humans used smoke signals, fire beacons, and mirrors to relay simple messages. These systems worked only in clear weather and over limited distances. Drums and horns echoed across bays and straits, warning of incoming ships or danger. But complexity was impossible. Nuance drowned in the wind. The real breakthrough came with writing, but writing still needed transport. For centuries, the ship was the message. Empires built vast courier networks, but once a message entered the ocean, it was at the mercy of storms, pirates, shipwrecks, and war. Bottled messages occasionally washed ashore, but they were acts of desperation, not systems. Then came the age of sail and global empires. By the 16th and 17th centuries, Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, and the Netherlands ruled territories separated by thousands of miles of water. Governance across oceans became an administrative nightmare. Orders arrived too late. Local officials acted independently. Rebellions formed before responses could even be written. The slowness of communication wasn't just inconvenient, it was destabilizing. Some empires collapsed because they could not communicate fast enough to hold themselves together. Everything changed in the 19th century. Electricity offered humanity something radical: instantaneous communication, or so it seemed. The idea was audacious. If signals could travel through wires on land, why not under the sea? The first attempts were disastrous. Early undersea cables snapped under pressure, corroded in salt water, or failed silently with no explanation. Engineers were working blind, with no way to see what was happening miles beneath the waves. But persistence won. In 1858, the first transatlantic telegraph cable briefly connected Europe and North America. Messages that once took weeks now took minutes. When Queen Victoria sent a message to U.S. President James Buchanan, newspapers declared the ocean conquered. The cable failed after weeks, but the idea had already changed the world. By the late 19th century, permanent undersea cable networks stretched across the globe. Colonial powers could issue commands in near real time. Financial markets synchronized across continents. News crossed oceans faster than ships could sail. The ocean was no longer silent, but cables were vulnerable. They could be cut, spied on, sabotaged during war. So humans looked upward. Radio waves did not need wires. In the early 20th century, wireless telegraphy allowed ships to communicate with shore while still at sea. Distress signals saved lives. Navies coordinated fleets across vast distances. For the first time, communication could travel through the ocean's atmosphere rather than beneath it. World wars accelerated everything. During World War I and II, oceanic communication became a weapon. Undersea cables were cut to isolate enemies. Encrypted radio transmissions determined the outcomes of battles. Control of information became as important as control of territory. After the wars, communication entered the age of speed. Telephone cables followed telegraph lines beneath the sea. Voices crossed oceans for the first time, not as recordings, but live. Families heard loved ones across continents. Diplomacy became more immediate. Business transformed overnight. Then came satellites. By the mid-20th century, signals no longer needed to touch the ocean at all. Messages bounced into space and back to Earth. Television broadcasts crossed oceans instantly. The world watched the same events at the same time. Ironically, even today, most global internet traffic still travels through undersea fiber-optic cables, descendants of those early telegraph lines. Invisible threads carrying nearly all of modern civilization's data across the ocean floor. The silence never returned, but it was never fully erased. Communication across oceans reshaped humanity's sense of distance. What once took months now takes milliseconds. The emotional weight of separation changed. Migration became less final. Empires became more centralized. Wars became more coordinated and more devastating. But this power came with consequences. Instant communication enabled global markets, but also global crises. It connected cultures while also amplifying conflict. The same cables that carry family messages carry surveillance data and cyber warfare. The ocean, once a divider, became a medium, and humanity became dependent on systems it rarely sees and barely understands. Today, we send messages across oceans without thinking. A text, a call, a video stream. We forget that beneath the waves, thousands of cables lie in darkness, carrying the modern world on pulses of light. We forget the centuries of silence that came before, the waiting, the uncertainty, the not knowing. Every message sent across the sea is a quiet victory over distance. And every time we communicate across oceans, we are echoing a timeless human refusal to be separated, unheard, or alone. The ocean still moves. It still storms. It still swallows ships. But it no longer swallows our voices.